Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world, with me Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. US military says it killed one person in a strike on a low-profile vessel. Move comes after US President Donald Trump wants Maduro to step down. Political violence continues to singe Bangladesh. Protest against the mob lynching of Deepu Chandra Das, organized at Bangladesh High Commission in New Delhi. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar announces $450 million reconstruction package for Sri Lanka, underscoring India's steadfast solidarity with the country in the aftermath of Cyclone Titwa. And in sports, Indian women's cricket team to play their second T20 international with Sri Lanka in Visakhapatnam today. Good afternoon to all the viewers joining us at this afternoon broadcast. To begin with the latest, US President Donald Trump on Monday announced plans to rebuild a new Trump class of battleships that he said would be larger, faster and 100 times more powerful than the biggest of any previous American-built warships. Speaking in Florida, Trump said the battleships would be part of a larger vision to create what he called a golden fleet that would help ensure US naval dominance. He said the project would begin with construction of 2 such battleships and eventually be expanded to encompass 20 to 25 new vessels. Donald Trump added he will meet next week with major defense contractors to address what he described as slow production schedules.
The largest, sturdiest, and most heavily armed vessel built specifically for naval combat. While America has built many new warships over the years, they've tended to be smaller and much smaller, and not conducive to where we are and where we're going, and peace through strength. These cutting-edge vessels will be some of the most lethal surface warfare ships. They will be actually the most ever built other than our submarines. We have submarines which will have, in many ways, even more lethality, and we have many of them under construction.
Now let us know more about the new generation of warships, which are known as Trump class. Well, these ships will be bigger, faster and more powerful than any previous warship. The program will begin with 2 vessels, which are expected to grow between 20 and 25 ships. The ships will also have displacement of more than 30,000 tons. And apart from that, the ships will be equipped with latest technology, including artificial intelligence and directed energy lasers. The vessels will be equipped with hypersonic and extremely lethal weapons. Construction of the vessels will create thousands of jobs as well. Concerns have been raised that US lags behind China in shipbuilding capacity. Moving on. The United States and Venezuela are edging closer to a serious diplomatic confrontation after the US seized 2 oil tankers linked to the Venezuelan government in international waters, with a third now under pursuit. US President Donald Trump issued a fresh warning to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, saying it would be smart for Maduro to step down as tensions now escalate between the 2 leaders. Here's more.
The US military said it struck a vessel suspected of carrying drugs in international waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean on Monday, killing 1 person, part of a months-long campaign of boat strikes near Latin America. The military has hit at least 29 alleged drug vessels since early September, killing 105 people. United States President Donald Trump levied his latest threat as the US Coast Guard continued for a second day to chase a 3rd oil tanker as part of a dark fleet that Venezuela uses to evade US sanctions. The US president also promised to keep the 2 ships and the nearly 4 million barrels of Venezuelan oil the Coast Guard has seized so far. Trump suggested he was prepared to further ratchet up the tensions after 4 months of mounting pressure on Caracas. He also issued a new warning to Nicolas Maduro, saying it would be smart for the Venezuelan leader to step down as US naval forces pressed a blockade on the South American country's oil wealth.
Well, I think it probably would. I can't tell. That's up to him what he wants to do. I think it would be smart for him to do that. But again, we're going to find out. Look, Venezuela did terrible things to the United States. They sent hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people into our open border. They sent their criminals, they sent their prisoners, they sent their drug dealers, they sent their mentally insane and incompetent people.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro hit back, saying the US president would be better off focusing on domestic issues rather than threatening Caracas.
I've been reflecting in recent days on the illegal aggressions that have occurred. I think that President Trump could do better in his country and in the world. He would do better within his country with economic and social issues. He would do better with the world if he attended to the issues of his country, each president to their own, because it cannot be that 70% of his speeches, declarations, and time is about Venezuela.
Venezuela's key ally Moscow, however, expressed its full support for Maduro's government as Washington has dialed up military operations and threats against Caracas. China also condemned the US's latest moves as a serious violation of international law. Venezuela denies any involvement in drug trafficking and insists that Washington is seeking to overthrow Maduro to seize the country's oil reserves, which are the world's largest. Anamika Pandey's report for DD India.
Trump has said United States needs Greenland for national security, citing growing Russia and Chinese presence in the Arctic region. He implied Greenland is needed for national protection and economic development, not for minerals, as he appoints Lithuania Governor Jeff Landry as a special envoy to Greenland. Now, the move draws criticism from Denmark and Greenland over Washington's growing interest in the mineral-rich Arctic island. Here's more.
President Donald Trump reasserted on Monday that the United States needs Greenland to become part of the United States. He named Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as his special envoy to Greenland, drawing renewed criticism from Denmark and Greenland together.
We need Greenland for national protection. They have a very small population. And I don't know, they say Denmark, but Denmark has spent no money. We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen earlier said in a joint statement that Greenland belongs to Greenlanders. Nielsen followed with a rather terse comment on social media. He said that the announcement of an envoy may sound big, but does not change anything on the ground. Greenlanders will decide their future. Denmark summoned the American ambassador for a meeting, together with the Greenlandic representative, and asked for an explanation. Support from the European Union was also quick and firm.
Preserving the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, its sovereignty, and the inviolability of its borders is essential for the European Union.
Trump has advocated for Greenland, a self-governing Danish territory, to become part of the United States, citing its strategic importance and mineral resources. Bureau Report, DD India.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stressed that Arctic security remains a key priority for the European Union after US President Donald Trump renewed his call to take over Greenland, provoking strong reactions from Denmark and the European Union. EU chiefs stressed that territorial integrity and sovereignty are fundamental principles of international law, which are essential not only for the European Union, but for nations from around the world. Greenland, a former Danish colony, became an integral part of the Kingdom of Denmark in 1953. It was granted Home Rule in 1979, expanding its autonomy, though Denmark retains authority over foreign affairs and defence. Well, Thailand and Cambodia agreed to hold a 24th December meeting of defence officials towards resuming a month-old ceasefire as fierce border fighting between them entered a third week with at least 80 people killed so far. Bangkok's defence chief on Tuesday sought to assuage any fears on the Cambodian side about the meeting taking place in Thailand, and the Thai Foreign Ministry said the venue was still being discussed. The nation's long-standing border conflict reignited this month, shattering an earlier truce, killing more than 40 people and displacing over 900,000 on both the sides. Thai Foreign Minister Sihasak announced a parley with Cambodia after a meeting in the Malaysian capital with his counterparts from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, of which Cambodia is also a member. Malaysia, the chair of the ASEAN regional bloc, had agreed to host the talks in its capital. Moving on to updates from Russia-Ukraine now. Russia attacked Kyiv and Ukraine's energy infrastructure early on Tuesday, triggering emergency outages and prompting NATO member Poland to scramble jets to protect its airspace 2 days after US-led Miami peace talks ended. The weekend peace talk in Miami brought together US officials with Ukrainian and European delegations, alongside separate contacts with Russian representatives, as Washington tested whether there was scope for a settlement to end Russia's conflict in Ukraine. Ukraine's energy ministry said emergency power outages were introduced in a number of regions, including Kyiv and the surrounding region, after Russia again attacked energy facilities. Russia has repeatedly hit Ukraine's power grid and energy facilities during the nearly 4-year conflict, intensifying strikes in winter to disrupt electricity and heating, strain logistics and the economy, and increase pressure on Kyiv. Also, Poland, a NATO member bordering western Ukraine, said Polish and allied aircraft were deployed to protect Polish airspace after Russian strikes targeted areas of western Ukraine near the border. Sudan's Prime Minister called on the UN Security Council to stand on the right side of the history by backing a peace plan for the war-torn country that calls for a ceasefire and global monitoring of the conflict. Since April 2023, Sudan's army has battled the paramilitary forces of the Rapid Support Forces, which controls the west and parts of the south, in fighting that has killed tens of thousands and displaced millions. Sudanese Prime Minister Kamel Idris pledged to organize free elections following a transition period to allow for inter-Sudanese dialogue.
Is born not from illusion, but from necessity, not from victory, but from responsibility. It is a deliberate choice to replace chaos with order, violence with law, and despair with hope.
In November, US President Donald Trump voiced willingness to help end the conflict, but talks led by the United States and other mediators of the so-called Quad, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, remain at an impasse. Australia's most populous state is set to pass tougher gun laws, ban the display of terrorist symbols, and curb protests after 15 people were killed and dozens injured in the mass shooting at a Jewish Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach on the 14th of December. Now, this comes after the state parliament's lower house cleared a bill late on Monday in an emergency sitting following the Bondi mass shooting. The Terrorism and Other Legislation Amendment Bill won support from the opposition Liberal Party in New South Wales state and is expected to clear the upper house later on Tuesday. Australia's New South Wales Premier Chris Minns held a news conference after the state's lower house passed a bill for tougher gun laws. He said Australia needs to make decisive steps to send a message to those who are intent on putting hate in people's heart.
We need to make decisive steps, whether it's through planning law or hate speech, to send a message to those who are intent on putting hate in people's heart or spreading racism in our community, that they will be met with the full force of the law, and that's exactly what's happened today.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also said it was preparing and drafting tighter national gun and hate speech reforms following the mass shooting at the Bondi Beach.
This is a time where the nation needs to come together in unity and with that sense of purpose. This is not a time for people to look for political product differentiation for the sake of it. And I'll continue to argue for unity. I'll continue to conduct myself in a way that's consistent with that call for national unity.
11 Ecuadorian soldiers were sentenced to nearly 35 years in prison over the abduction and deaths of 4 children last year, whose burnt bodies were later discovered. The children, aged 11 to 15, went to play soccer in the violent port city before being detained by the Ecuadorian Air Force, according to video and family testimony. And on the Christmas Eve, their bodies were found incinerated with gunshot wounds to the head and evidence of torture. All 11 soldiers were sentenced to 34 years and 8 months in prison for the crime of forced disappearance. 5 other personnel who cooperated with the investigation were given 30-month sentences. During the trial, video evidence showed one of the children being shot at point-blank range and another soldier beating a child with his rifle. In central Nigeria, gunmen have kidnapped 28 people, including women and children, in Zak village of Bashar district. The victims were travelling to a religious gathering when their vehicle was ambushed. Police have launched an investigation into the case. The attack comes as final group of 130 kidnapped Nigerian school children were freed by the government on Sunday in one of the country's worst school kidnappings in recent years, ending a month-long ordeal that drew global concern. The United Nations warns of a surge in mass abductions, with worshippers also targeted in separate raids. The abduction caused outrage over worsening insecurity in northern Nigeria, when armed gangs frequently target schools for ransom. And the crisis has become a profit-driven industry, generating over $1.6 million in the past year. Time to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. Arey, it fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now let's get you all the latest from the ongoing Bangladesh tensions. Inqilab Moncho, one of the prominent platforms that rose during the July uprising in Bangladesh on Monday, warned of launching a mass movement to oust the current interim government of the country if justice is not delivered in the killing of its leader Usman Hadi last week. The warning came from the platform's member secretary Abdullah Al-Jabeer at an emergency press conference held at Shahid Hadi Chattar in Dhaka. He said a 24-hour ultimatum issued during Hadi's Namazi Janaza had expired without any visible action from the Home Advisor or law enforcement agencies to arrest the accused. Jaber accused the authorities of negligence and evasion of responsibility, alleging that the absence of key advisors at official briefings showed a lack of seriousness over the murder. Announcing a protest procession and further street programs, Inqilab Munch said it would decide whether to continue supporting the interim government or initiate a movement to oust it, reiterating its resolve to remain mobilized until justice is delivered. Sharif Osman Hadi was shot at close range on the 12th of December. He was then airlifted to Singapore by air ambulance for advanced treatment, but he later succumbed to the injuries. Following his death, protests broke out in Dhaka as the supporters of the Inqilab Munch called for justice for their slain leader. Hadi was also being considered as a potential Dhaka 8 candidate for the February 2026 national elections. And following the mob lynching of Deepu Chandra Das, another youth in Bangladesh, member of Vishwa Hindu Parishad, protests are going on outside the Bangladesh High Commission right now in New Delhi. Heavy security was deployed near the Bangladesh High Commission to monitor and control the situation. The protesters demanded accountability from Bangladeshi authorities, with some calling for justice and protection of minorities. Members of the Prasar Bharati Hindi Bengali Sangathan or VHP and Bajrang Dal participated in a protest near the Durgabai Deshmukh South Campus metro station, raising slogans about Bangladesh's Hindu and their security. Deepu Chandra Das was beaten to death by a mob over alleged blasphemy, and his body was subsequently set on fire on 18th December. Vishwa Hindu Parishad and other Hindu organizations also protest over the atrocities against Hindus and the mob lynching of Deepu Das in Bangladesh. The protests are happening in Bhopal right now as well. And now let's get you live inputs from Bangladesh, and for this I'm joined by DD India correspondent Naval Singh Parmar. Good afternoon, Naval Singh. What is the latest that you're tracking for us from Bangladesh?
Atmosphere is very tense as Bangladesh Nationalist Party acting chairman Tariq Rahman, Urf Tariq Jia, is returning back to Bangladesh after 15 years, and day after tomorrow is his scheduled arrival. So BNP party is busy with the preparation to have a grand welcome for the Tariq Rahman. At the same time, the other political parties who are supporting the Yunus administration, they have their own demand, like you have mentioned that the Inqilab Munch and other small faction who are supporting Yunus administration, they are having their own demands, and in this scenario, the Yunus administration has got from the almost all sides, surrounded by the pressure and various pressure group of the all sides, and at the same time, law and order situation here in Bangladesh is very critical, and almost all political parties, those who are supporting Yunus administration and those who are against the Yunus administration, they all are criticizing and condemning the law and order situation in Bangladesh.
All right. Thank you so much, Naval Singh, for joining us and getting us the latest straight from Bangladesh. And now let's give you more perspective on this. And for that, I'm joined by Ms. Meena Sikri, who's been the former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us at this afternoon broadcast. Now, talking about Bangladesh. Bangladesh was once the fastest growing economy, but now stands at a spot from where even recovery is barely enough for the country. What do you think who's responsible for all of this? Fake narratives behind Hadi's killing, or is it some sort of propaganda ahead of the February elections?
No, actually, the decline, the rapid decline and the destruction of law and order in Bangladesh has set in ever since the regime change operation done in July, August last year. And with the ouster of Sheikh Hasina by this group backed strongly by the Jamaat-e-Islami. Actually, the Jamaat-e-Islami has been calling the shots in Bangladesh for the last 15 months, and they are backed in turn by Pakistan, because it was conducted through Pakistan with the backing of the Western powers. So this combination has, if you recall, these were all the people who were on the losing side in 71. And then they think that in July, August last year, with the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, they can return back to the pre-71 days. That seems to be what Pakistan is aiming for, because they have introduced a real strong command and control system with Bangladesh. You know, they are embedding their officers, Pakistani officers, with the Bangladesh army. You know, they have removed all the restrictions of the last 54 years for visa restrictions, trade between Pakistan and Bangladesh, cargo inspection between Pakistan and Bangladesh. All that is gone. So now it is very much back to what it was earlier, together with the fact that now all these Islamist groups, because Jamaat-e-Islami, as you know, is you know, a right-wing Islamist group, and they have got together all the other Islamist groups with them, like Islami Andolan Bangladesh, and these Islamists are also in the administration, and they've been, you know, opposed by a lot of the people of Bangladesh who want to preserve the Bangladesh constitution with its focus on plurality. In fact, Sheikh Mohammed Yunus's regime was not willing to call elections, and they were saying we'll have 4 years to do reforms, and after that there'll be elections. But it's only the pressure of the people of Bangladesh that elections have now been called in February of next year.
Right.
But even in the run up to the election, it is very clear that the political support of Mohammed Yunus regime and Jamaat-e-Islami is with the Islamist groups, and that is why the attack on Inqilab Manch leader Osman Hadi has been with so much anger and, you know, the kind of eulogization that perhaps would not be given to any other leader of any other political party in Bangladesh. And you know, but still they do not know who the killer is.
Right.
And now Inqilab Manch is up in arms because they were trying to pin the blame on India. And at the behest of the Inqilab Manch, you had, you know, the Yunus regime calling in our High Commissioner just minutes after the attack on Osman Hadi, blaming it on India. Of course, we, you know, gave a very strong reaction and said nothing doing. I mean, we've got nothing to do with it. It's entirely an internal matter of Bangladesh, and we don't interfere in such internal matters. So I think that while the Inqilab Manch kept on saying India, India, the Yunus regime has been forced to admit that they have no evidence that the killer had anything to do with India or that he went to India or anything like that. But they don't know who it is. Although there are some videographs showing that it was somebody who was participating in the political rallies with Osman Hadi himself. So it may have been some internal dissension and so on. So at the same time, as your correspondent has pointed out, we have the BNP leader returning after 17 long years. I think he left Bangladesh in about 2008 or something, because at that time there was an army-backed caretaker government, and Tariq Rahman had been taken into custody, and you know, he felt that he was very badly treated. He said he was ill, and so he was sent off to London. He's been living there for 17 years, but still controlling the party by long. Now there's this huge anticipation, but also a huge security challenge, because as you've seen, the situation is very, very volatile, and the Islamist groups, you know, with the presence of even state-sponsored groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba, they are determined to seize political power.
Right.
And they have banned the activity of the Awami League. But the Awami League also is making a strong push for participation in the election. The government of India has made a very strong statement that in the interest of stability in Bangladesh, must have inclusive elections.
We also have with us Akshay Dongre, who's joining us straight from New Delhi, outside the Bangladesh High Commission. Good afternoon, Akshay. What is the latest that you're tracking? How is the protest unfolding outside the High Commission office there?
Well, the protest is now over, Deepika. You know, the protesters have just moved, you know, about 10 to 15 minutes back from the protest site. But what we can show you right now is the kind of security arrangement that is still here. You know, that has also thinned down quite significantly in the last 20 minutes, because the cops have also moved from the position to back to their police stations and their designated areas. But still, you can see some checking here going on right outside the Bangladesh High Commission. Some Central Armed Police Forces along with the Delhi Police that's manning the barricades that have been set up here. Some water cannons that were brought to deter the protesters who had gathered here since the morning. Certain buses that you see are of also the Delhi Police that were brought in large numbers to prevent the protesters from getting too close to the Bangladeshi High Commission, because you know, unlike Bangladesh, India still respects the norms of the regulations of the Geneva Convention, which dictates the host country to ensure the protection of the high commissions and the embassies at all cost. And that's sort of the difference that we are seeing in the Yunus regime right now in a democratic government like India. But still tensions are high as far as the lynching and the murder of Deep Udas is concerned in Bangladesh. And as far as the failed policies of the Bangladesh government is concerned, it is but natural to deflect that sort of anger that is there in the Bangladeshi youth of unemployment, of rising inflation, of joblessness, of the sort of rising communal hatred and find a scapegoat. And in this instance, they have found a scapegoat in India, blaming all the wrong that is happening in the country, staking communal violence, and we are seeing the situation escalate in the country. And while there were protests here as well, there was no kind of violence, there was no kind of attacks at the High Commission. People were asking questions and raising slogans of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. They were asking for victims to be protected, for innocent people to be protected in the country, Bangladesh, a country that was formed with the help of India when the Indian armed forces in fact forced the Pakistani army to surrender, and only it is because of the contribution of our country that Bangladesh came into existence in 1971. But it seems that the people who are in power right now in Bangladesh, working perhaps on the payrolls of the ISI or the Pakistani establishment, have forgotten their goals and are now trying to cut at the very hand of alliance that it had with India after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. But good hope. Let's hope that good sense prevails in Bangladeshi regime as well. But as far as talking about this protest, it has thinned down. But there are threats of these protesters that they will come back again to the Bangladesh High Commission and stage more protests if the violence against the minorities doesn't stop in Bangladesh.
All right, thank you so much, Akshay, for bringing us that very important picture when we talk about how the protests can also take place when we talk about people raising their concerns and voicing their opinions. And indeed, on the other hand, we are seeing an altogether different picture there from Bangladesh. Now, Ms. Sikri, when we talk about this entire situation unfolding in Bangladesh, this has not only toppled Bangladesh's own economy and governance, but is severely straining economic ties with neighboring countries like India. So we are hearing from international authorities as well, like Guterres and countries like Russia, who are condemning acts against minorities. In that situation, why Bangladesh cannot realize the fact and the loss of surmounting for their own selves, which is hard to recover for them for ages?
Yeah, well, actually, there is now an ideological struggle going on in Bangladesh, and the Islamists, they want control. They don't care about the economy because the people are impoverished, the people are poor, they have no jobs, they have no money, there's inflation. Then the control of the Jamaat-e-Islami over them becomes even stronger because they give them free handouts, they give them clothes, they give them food, and so on. That's how they establish control. So for the Islamists, the disruption in the economy is not of much meaning at all. But I think that the attacks by the regime, the sanctioned attacks by the regime on the minorities, on the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and the Ahmadiyyas, I think that is absolutely inhuman. And this is not new. Today, of course, is the most barbaric. The killing of Dipu Chandra Das was the most barbaric of the series of killings that have been happening since 5th of May last year. Since Sheikh Hasina's plane left Dhaka, the very first target was all the remnants of the 1971 Liberation War, the statues of Sheikh Mujib, the buildings, and the second was to kill all the Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, the Sufis and Ahmadiyyas, all minorities, and they want, a Wahhabi Islam set up in Bangladesh. So, it's been terrible for the last 1 year, and the main thing is that there's complete denial from Muhammad Yunus and from his interim regime. Every time that somebody asks him, I remember I've seen some interviews where he traveled to New York to the UNGA and so on, and when he was asked about the attacks on the minorities, he very dismissively said, oh, fake news from India. So this is the kind of approach that the Yunus regime has to the attacks on the minorities, and he has not been given any attention. Rather, I think it's a kind of a open door inviting such attacks because there is no control, there is no check. Even this time, because there was such a furor, they're saying, and not only furor, but there was mobile recording. the hundreds of people in the crowd, each of them recording on their mobile how poor Dipchandra Das was beaten to death and then his body was put on a pole and burnt and all that. It's absolutely medieval, barbaric stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable. But all they are saying is, 7 people have been arrested. We know that's completely completely fake in a way, because within a few days they're going to be released on bail. There will be no charges, there will be no FIRs, and so this event will be as though it never happened. And every day, every week, there are events which are horrific instances of the attack on the minorities. Recently, a few days ago, there was a instance of an elderly Hindu couple inside their home. Their throats were slit and they died. They were killed on the spot, but not even a mention in the Bangladesh media. Bangladesh media has stopped writing about it because this is the instruction of Mohammed Yunus. He controls the media completely and he doesn't want any coverage of the attacks on the minorities. But globally, it's been fully recorded. The Hindu groups, the other groups, the minority, pro-minority groups, many human rights organizations in Bangladesh, they've recorded all of this. They have a full record of how many have happened, how many have been killed, how many rapes, how many lynchings, how many murders and destruction of property, even jobs. I mean, people are surrounded and they're forced to resign. Hindu primary teachers, Hindu professors, college professors, all. It's been a miserable occasion, combined with the complete economic downturn, the miserable condition of the minorities, all the minorities, the Hindu, the Christian, Ahmadiyya and Sufis.
Also, very importantly, ma'am, my colleague just talked about the Geneva Convention. And we also know India's stand that it remains firm, saying that the country really wants free and fair elections in Bangladesh. How would you assess the current relationship and specifically India's stand at this position, at this juncture, considering the entire situation which is unfolding minute by minute?
Well, actually, of course, our government has exercised a huge amount of strategic restraint. And even in our first message, Prime Minister Modi's first message to Mohammed Yunus, message of felicitation, he felicitated him. And then there was a clear indication that we are willing to continue the economic cooperation between India and Bangladesh that was established after 15 years of hard work during Sheikh Hasina's time. And under this cooperation, there was great benefit to Bangladesh because they grew at 6.5–7% a year. And they even were on the verge of graduating from the LDC status. But now, of course, that growth has halved completely. And in fact, there is absolutely, even the Central Bank of Bangladesh has recorded its deep concern at the situation, because there is no foreign investment coming in, no domestic private investment coming in. In such kind of a situation when there is so much chaos, why will anybody put their money there? And so this is a matter that it is for Bangladesh to decide, because the Yunus regime has slowly unraveled or either suspended or turned back on any and every aspect of economic cooperation that was taking place earlier between India and Bangladesh. So the trade was taking place. They said, now you can't do it by the land border, do it by air, whatever, all kinds of restrictions. In fact, because of this, factories have been closing down. The Yunus regime wants the Bangladesh people to import from other countries. Import from Brazil, import from USA, import from Pakistan, import from Turkey. This is what they're telling the people. But all these places, when you import, it will be much more expensive. It will take a much longer time. And the big competitive edge that Bangladesh had built up in the ready-made garment sector because of its, proximity to the raw materials like cotton yarn, man-made fiber and all that, textile machinery. All this had given Bangladesh a real competitive edge globally in this ready-made garment, the second in the world after China in ready-made garment exports. But now it's all gone, and it's causing a lot of disturbance within Bangladesh. India is ready to continue. We've said so again and again and again. Right. In fact, we are allowing the trade to go, all the necessary exports, rice and other things that are needed on a humanitarian basis for the people of Bangladesh. We are letting that go into Bangladesh. But I think that if Bangladesh does not make up its mind very quickly on whether it wants good relations, the Yunus regime must say that it wants good relations with India, and they must stop the attacks on the minorities. They must show sincerity and seriousness about bringing those who have done these attacks to book and framing charges against them. And they must allow the decisions of the previous government to continue on in terms of economic cooperation.
Indeed, thinking beyond the elections, they should now act on maintaining good relations with neighboring countries as well, in order to maintain its own economic progress as well. as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, for joining us and bringing us a very rounded perspective on the developing situation there in Bangladesh. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Indian Army's Engineer Task Force successfully launches 120-foot dual carriageway Bailey Bridge to restore vital road connectivity in Sri Lanka's Jaffna region. Up next, a special report on National Farmers' Day, as this year's theme focuses on farmer-producer organizations and their role in building Vikasit Bharat. And after the break, we'll also get you all the latest on changing weather conditions across the country. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now, underscoring India's steadfast solidarity with Sri Lanka in the aftermath of adverse weather conditions caused by Cyclone Titwa, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who's on a Sri Lanka visit, announced a $450 million reconstruction package for Sri Lanka to support the island nation in its recovery.
We had a detailed discussion on the damage caused by Cyclone Titwa. Commits a reconstruction package of US $450 million to Sri Lanka. Our talks centered around how expeditiously this commitment can be delivered.
Giving opening remarks in Colombo alongside his Sri Lankan counterpart Vijita Herath, the minister reiterated India's strong resolve to support the people of Sri Lanka. He said that India stands firmly with Sri Lanka more than ever.
India's relief and assistance mission, Operation Sagar Bandhu, commenced on the very day that Cyclone Titwa made landfall. Our aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, and another ship, INS Udaygiri, were present at Colombo and delivered relief materials, and thereafter also deployed helicopters.
External Affairs Minister with his Sri Lankan counterpart jointly inaugurated a 120-foot dual carriageway Bailey Bridge in the Kilinochchi district of Northern Province, which is one of the areas severely affected by Cyclone Titwa. The 110 tons bridge was airlifted from India and installed as part of Operation Sagar Bandhu. Indian Army's Engineer Task Force has successfully launched a critical 120-foot dual carriageway Bailey Bridge to restore vital road connectivity in Jaffna region of Sri Lanka, which is severely affected by Cyclone Titwa. The specialist task force, comprising 24 bridging experts equipped with the latest technology and new generation equipment, executed the mission in a record time of 2 days, working day and night in spite of inclement weather conditions. Now, this bridge has restored important road connectivity between key towns of Paranthan, Kilinochchi and Mulayativu, which were cut off for last 20 days, thus giving a significant boost to humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. India marks National Farmers' Day on the 23rd of December to remember Chaudhry Charan Singh's birth anniversary. Now, this year's theme focuses on farmer-producer organizations and their role in building a Vikasit Bharat by the year 2047. With record food grain production, a 5-fold surge in agriculture budget, and schemes like PM Kisan Samman Nidhi benefiting over 9 crore farmers, DD India's Rahul Upadhyay filed this report. Take a look.
National Farmers' Day, also known as Kisan Divas, is celebrated annually on December 23 in India to recognize the vital contributions of farmers to the nation's economy and food security. This date commemorates the birth anniversary of Chaudhry Charan Singh, the fifth Prime Minister of India and a dedicated champion of farmers' rights and rural development. Officially instituted in 2001, the day honors his enduring legacy as one of the most prominent agrarian leaders in post-independence India. This year's theme, Viksit Bharat 2047, the role of FPOs in globalizing Indian agriculture, underscores the pivotal contribution of farmer-producer organizations in elevating Indian farming to global standards. FPOs empower small and marginal farmers through collective bargaining, enhanced access to advanced technology, quality inputs, institutional credit, and international markets. By strengthening supply chains, boosting agri-exports, and fostering sustainable, market-driven practices, FPOs are instrumental in realizing the vision of a developed India by 2047. The Government of India continues to prioritize farmer welfare and agricultural growth. The budget allocation for the Department of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare has surged nearly fivefold, from 27,663 crore rupees in 2013-14 to over 1.22 lakh crore rupees in recent years. Reflecting this support, India's food grain production has risen impressively from 265 million tons in 2013-14 to record levels in recent seasons, demonstrating enhanced productivity and resilience in the sector. The government has introduced several transformative initiatives to uplift farmers. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, PM Kisan, an income support scheme for cultivable landholding farmers providing rupees 6,000 per year in 3 installments. 21 installments have been paid to over 9 crore farmers. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Man Dhan Yojana, PMKMY, a voluntary pension scheme for farmers aged 18 to 40, offering 3,000 rupees monthly pension after age 60. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, PMFBY, restructured weather-based crop insurance scheme, RWBCIS, delivers affordable crop insurance covering over 4 crore farmers annually across most states and union territories. Modified Interest Subvention Scheme, MIS, offers concessional short-term loans up to 3 lakh rupees at 7% interest, benefiting over 7.75 crore Kisan credit card holders. Agricultural Infrastructure Fund, AIF, a 1 lakh crore rupees financing facility for post-harvest infrastructure and community assets. Formation and promotion of 10,000 FPOs, a central scheme to boost farmers' bargaining power, reduce production costs, and increase incomes through aggregation and scale. National Beekeeping and Honey Mission, NBHM, promotes scientific beekeeping under Atmanirbhar Bharat, driving the sweet revolution, with India emerging as a leading global honey exporter. Namo Drone Didi equips 15,000 women's self-help groups with drones for rental services and fertilizer and pesticide application. National Mission on Natural Farming, NMNF, targets 15,000 clusters across 7.5 lakh hectares and 10,000 bio-input resource centers for sustainable practices. Pradhan Mantri Annadata Ai Sanrakshan Abhiyan, PM Asha, aims to ensure remunerative prices for farmers by strengthening the MSP system. The government's unwavering commitment to farmers' welfare stands out through visionary policies, substantial investments, and groundbreaking initiatives. From surging budget allocations and record food production to transformative schemes empowering millions. These efforts are propelling Indian agriculture towards global excellence, ensuring prosperity, security, and pride of every Annadata who feeds the nation. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
Now let's get you weather updates from around the globe. Severe cold conditions continue across northern India, including Delhi, with dense fog affecting several states during the morning hours. The impact on daily life is clearly visible as temperatures have dropped sharply in many of the regions. As per the Weather Department, UP, Bihar, Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Rajasthan, Northern Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Northern Madhya Pradesh and parts of northeast India are likely to witness intense cold conditions until the 28th of December. Dense fog is expected to prevail during the morning hours across these regions. Temperatures have dropped below freezing in Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh. Snowfall is also continuing in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Meanwhile, the National Weather Service said on Tuesday this year may have been Britain's hottest on record, with an average temperature above 10 degrees Celsius. The Met Office said the previous high was 10.03 Celsius in 2022, while the average temperature in the final week of this year has been 10.05 Celsius. If the data is confirmed, it will mean that 4 of the past 5 years will be among the hottest ever recorded in the country since records began in 1884. The hottest 10 years have all occurred during the past 2 decades. In China, a strong cold front has brought heavy snow and freezing temperatures across northern China, disrupting transportation and prompting emergency responses. Since Monday, a powerful cold wave has swept across many parts of China, bringing much snow and plunging temperatures. In some of the areas, conditions have reached extreme levels, with temperatures expected to drop as low as minus 26 degrees Celsius, and parts of northern Shaanxi province in the northwest bracing for lows around minus 22 degrees Celsius. River swelling in southern France as extreme flood warning issued. Video shared on social media showed an overflowing river in La Roque in southern France after heavy rainfall in the area. France's meteorological agency has issued a red alert for the Hérault department due to exceptional flooding of the lower river. Now, the first teaser for British-American director Christopher Nolan's highly anticipated epic, The Odyssey, dropped on Monday. The film is an adaptation of Homer's legendary saga and is being released by Universal Pictures. The upcoming movie stars Matt Damon in the lead role, alongside Anne Hathaway, Zendaya, Tom Holland, Lupita Nyong'o, and Charlize Theron, among others. Shot entirely on IMAX film cameras, The Odyssey marks Nolan's first project since his Oscar-winning drama Oppenheimer. The film is set to hit the theaters on the 17th of July next year. The year 2026 is shaping up to be a major one for cinema, with several highly anticipated releases also on the slate, including Avengers, Doomsday, and Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day. And now let's get you all the latest from the world of business. Now, both gold and silver prices hit record highs on Monday, driven by geopolitical tensions and market expectations for further US Federal Reserve rate cuts. Spot gold prices breached $4,420 per ounce during the intraday trading on Monday. Traders anticipate the Fed will cut rates twice in 2026, following last week's release of a series of US economic data. In addition, the silver futures contract climbed above $69.5 per ounce on Monday, surging nearly 3%, also reaching a record high. Due to purchases of central banks and inflows into exchange-traded funds, gold prices have surged by about 2/3 this year. Gold-backed ETFs have recorded 5 consecutive weeks of increased inflows. On the other hand, the yen advanced amid broad US dollar weakness in the Asian trading session on Tuesday after the severest warning yet from the authorities, signaling Tokyo's readiness to intervene as Japanese currency hovered near recent lows against major peers. The threat of intervention is keeping yen pairs at bay for now, although near-term yen weakness is likely to persist, analysts say, as cautious tone from Bank of Japan last week hinted at a slow pace of rate hikes next year. The yen appreciated 0.7% to 156 per US dollar, extending its gains from previous session and retracing most of the losses sustained since Friday after the BOJ delivered a well-telegraphed rate hike. On to all the action from the world of sports, to begin with cricket. After cruising to a comprehensive victory in the opener, Indian women will look forward to tighten their grip on the 5-match T20I series when they take on Sri Lanka in the second game in Visakhapatnam on Tuesday. India wrapped up the chase in just 14.4 overs in the first T20 international. Jemima Rodriguez struck an unbeaten 69 to guide India to an 8-wicket victory. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka need more support from their top and middle order. Vishmi, Harshita and Hasini all showed brief intent in the first T20 but struck at under a run a ball. And Australia skipper Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon were ruled out of the final 2 Ashes test against England due to an injury. Cummins returned from a lower back injury to lead Australia to victory in the 3rd test in Adelaide, taking 6 wickets in the match. Cummins will now target full fitness for the month-long 2020 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka starting in early February. Steve Smith, who captained the team in Cummins' absence during the first 2 tests, will lead the side again. While veteran spinner Lyon faces surgery and an extended period on the sidelines, quick bowler Richardson and spinner Todd Murphy were named in the 15-man squad for the 4th test starting on Friday in Melbourne. Australia have already retained the famous urn as they lead the 5-match series by 3-0. And before we close, it's now time to get you some amazing visuals. A Cape Town theatre was transformed into a warm, glowing sanctuary as the Thandika String Quartet performed a candlelit Christmas concert, captivating an audience seeking festive cheer. Surrounded by hundreds of flickering candles, the quartet delivered a mix of classical pieces and modern holiday favorites. Each piece drew warm applause, with the crowd reacting as much to the atmosphere as to the music itself. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.